Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the NECA Alien Series 3 Bishop figure from Aliens. And I must admit, this was one of the figures in this wave I was probably most excited for. I was always a fan of Bishop in the film. I thought he was a cool character. But in reality, probably the most boring one from this set, seeing as for the most part, it's just a dude. But of course, Lance Henriksen is very much a part of the Alien franchise, appearing in 3 of the movies, if you count AVP, which I sometimes don't, and just a great genre actor to finally get in action figure form. Bishop comes with a very cool looking little light here. It's a very nice looking little canister. We have just a flat black end on that side and kind of a yellowy end on the other. Orange little spots here. We have the strap on it, which is rubberized, very posable, and very nicely detailed. But the coolest part is here, it's actually a clear little lens over the top and you can see the detail on the inside. It's also really cool because it reflects light really well, so you could actually get him in some cool poses if you use a little spotlight on here and make it look like it's actually illuminating. But a very nice little accessory. He holds it very well in his one open hand. He also comes with his knife, or I guess maybe it's Hudson's knife. I don't remember whose knife this was, but the knife that he gets in the mess hall, I believe, and does the stabby thing with Hudson's hand. Very nicely detailed as well, some nice weathering, wear and tear on it, little serrated edges here on the side. Just overall a very cool looking little knife. The figure is really well done. I think they did a pretty good job of capturing Lance Henriksen's likeness. He's kind of an odd looking dude, but they really got a figure that looks a lot like him. All the little wrinkles and lines in his face are really well done. His eyes are really nicely done. I did find one in the store that was pretty wonky. He was a little cross-eyed, so I figured I'd leave that one on the pegs and grab this one instead. His hair is also very nicely detailed, very well painted, different layers of browns in there, really giving it some nice texture. Coming down to his jumpsuit, this is kind of interesting. It's all one big rubberized kind of unitard going on here. And I have to guess that this might be because maybe there was some extra sculpting work done around this section of the figure, perhaps, that we might see in a later release. I'm not 100% sure, but I would be willing to bet that maybe NECA's trying to save on some tooling costs by doing it this way. But he has a nice little rubberized collar up here at the top, all the little pockets and little zipper pulls. The blue on here is very nice. It's kind of a darker blue with some dry brushing and shading to give it different layers and different looks to it. So it's not just one big flat character. It's got his black belt going across the center here. A lot of great wrinkles and folds in the clothing as well. Over on his shoulder, you actually see the USCM logo, the USS Sulaco patch on his shoulder. Very tiny, but very well detailed. Very cool they crammed that much detail into a very, very small section of the figure. Got his rolled and pinned up sleeves here, which look great. Very similar detail here on the back. One thing I really like as well is they kind of have the pockets overlapping onto the rest of the sculpt from the unitard kind of thing going on here. So you actually have these rubberized pockets coming back over the backs of the legs, and it kind of helps create a more seamless look for the character, which I really like. The legs have a lot of similar detail where it's just the little pockets and stitching all throughout. Then we have his futuristic tennis shoes here, which is kind of neat. Very cool looking. And we even have detailed bottoms on them, which is great. You can actually have Bishop leave footprints if you wanted to for some weird reason. He does have peg holes at the bottom of his feet. His one arm is just an arm, but it is well detailed. They sculpted it very nicely. The hand is good, it has some veins running through it. In the other arm, we have his watch, which is really nicely detailed. You can see the little red dots on it, which is so tiny of a detail. I'm surprised it got in there. And then he comes with his gripping hand, which is really good for the flashlight, but you could pop that out and peg in his hand for the knife, which has a very tight grip. Fingers aren't open at all. And then his pinky's coming out. And that's not something I noticed in the film, but now I want to go back and see if the scene where he has the knife, if he has like a pinky up gesture going on, because it's kind of an interesting little touch. For articulation, we have a ball joint at the neck, so you can go up and down, side to side, all that good range of motion you'd expect. Pin socket shoulders, so you can go out to the side, as well as forward and back. I must say that when I first got this figure, this arm was actually detached. I had to heat up the body in some warm water and pop the arm back in. A little annoying, but it seems to be just fine now. No harm done to it. We have a bend at the elbow, and because of the way these cuffs are rubberized, it actually does allow it to move a full 90 degrees as well as rotate. We have a ball joint at the wrist with a good range of motion there. Now the articulation in the torso is a little harder to discern. There's definitely some articulation there, but because of this unitard design, it really doesn't allow it to move very freely. Anything you really do, it kind of just pulls it back to center. But it feels like we at least have one ball joint in the mid-torso or waist that will allow you to move forward and back, side to side, all that good stuff, but it's just really hindered by the way this costume is designed. The legs are in pin sockets. You can go forward and back, out to the side, and swivel out the upper leg. You can bend the leg as well as rotate, and then a very nice ball joint at the foot. And it feels like in this series of Aliens figures, I'm getting a lot of mileage out of this David Prometheus figure, but what better person to compare Bishop to than his earlier counterpart, another artificial human. And you kind of have to wonder what was going on at the Weyland-Yutani company, that somebody was just like, you know, our earlier Magneto-looking androids, those were cool, but why don't we make them look more like the guy from Pumpkinhead? And overall, I really enjoy this figure. He is a little more on the plain side, his articulation is a little more limited, but also he's not a character that is going to be involved in a lot of super action scenes. So I don't really mind it as much that he's not super posable. If he was a Marine, I would definitely want that torso articulation. I would definitely want there maybe to be some more seams and gaps in his costume just to allow that movement. But because he's Bishop and he really just sits around and does sciencey stuff and crawls through tunnels for most of the movie, I'm really okay with him being the way he is. And I think the sculpt is really nice, the paint is very well achieved, and overall he's a very nice figure. Now as I said before, I'm really guessing that that unitard design is to cover up the mid-torso section, that hopefully we will get a split apart version with a new head sculpt and we could have him ripped apart by the Queen, since of course now we have the Queen. It just seems fitting we would get that version, and I really hope we do. That is definitely very high on my alien figure want list. But Bishop does get a very solid recommend. If you're a fan of aliens, Bishop is definitely a figure and a character you want on your shelf. Make sure you check me out on Instagram using the Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been another Outside the Box Reviews. Game over, man! Game over!